So we're just going to go straight into Q&A, Shorful, and I will just read them out to you and we will go for it. So first one in from Maria. A little bit of an observation first, but we can turn it into a question. So Maria says, I have found out that a business is more likely to adapt any technical changes, for example, using Python instead of macros and Power Queries in Excel, than any strategic changes in the business resulting from data. However, even that can be met with some resistance if they've used, for example, Power Queries for years. And she kind of comments on your observation about that senior stakeholder buy-in. I have found that the best approach would be to approach a more senior person, like a senior IT person in the company, rather than tell my manager, and try to advocate the advantages of my new approach to them.
Yeah, and absolutely. And that goes to my part about building relationships. I mean, I think there's also this tendency when you are, working in the data or the level you're at to only speak to people at your level. There's nothing stopping you going speaking to the CTO. I mean, in most organizations, even though there's a hierarchy, that's just for the organization. It's not a personal hierarchy. You can't. So build those relationships. That way, it is then easier for you to go and speak to the CTO. And also, if the CTO knows you and they know what you do, they're more likely to listen to you. Also probably trust your recommendations. So if you think that rather doing this is better, then you find absolutely they are. I mean, the best successes I've had is when I've worked across departments and I've worked with people, senior people in other departments, and you build those really close bonds. And then you find it's also the other way. They come to you and ask you for your opinion and your advice.
Observation on that, which is what this last year has taught me, is that fundamentally we are all humans, we are all people. So let's just get chatting. But Eleanor brings up a really interesting point. How can we build these relationships when we are home working?
Yeah, so I have been asked this before. How do you build this? Now, as you know me, Rob, I love to connect with people and I love chatting, which is how we stay in touch. It is hard. I mean, if you have not met that person in person, or you're new to an organization and you're in this lockdown, or you're in this remote type working environment, what I find is that you've got to use something that's natural for you to make that icebreaker. So for me, I'm not afraid to show my weakness in terms of understanding. So I will always go to people and say, look, I've heard this. I just need some clarification. Okay. So, because I'm new to the business, or I'm new to this part of the business, or I don't know your area, can you help me? And I reach out to people. Now, sometimes people will say sorry, or they won't reply, or they'll say, sorry, it's not me. You can go to, they refer you to someone else, or they will answer it themselves. Okay. But the thing I try to emphasize with, again, it may be true for other disciplines, but obviously I work in the data space, is that don't be afraid to approach people to get clarification, to get a corroboration. So, like I said, replaying briefs, but also, there's nothing wrong with just saying hello, right? Okay. If you were in the office and you were in the canteen or the coffee area and you're making yourself a coffee, if someone walks in and you've not seen them before, there's nothing wrong with saying hello. Now, virtually that's quite harder because you don't have that serendipity of bumping into people, but there's nothing stopping you if you've seen, someone sends a company email and they're, the chief technology officer, and they're like, we're going to move over to Tableau, it's a company decision. I don't think that there should be anything stopping you then to follow up, one-to-one, not in a group, because some people wouldn't feel comfortable. Just a one-to-one, say, oh, I'm really interested that you've done that. I work in this part of the business where we use Excel. I've heard about Tableau. I'd love to get involved. If you feel it's appropriate, I would love to get involved. And then you've made that connection, okay? And don't forget, everybody, like you said, Rob, everybody are people, okay?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you have decades of experience like we do. We're still underneath. We're still people, and we still respond. And I found when I was quite junior that a lot of senior people did respond, did help. It's just that it was me who didn't approach them. And I do the same now. And I think a lot of senior people do the same now. They realize that when they were junior, they got a lot of assistance and help. So they try and pay it back. So reach out, connect with people. The worst that can happen, just like it does when you're out in a bar, is someone just says no, right? So,
yeah, absolutely. So interesting you make that observation. Both of us with decades of experience, sir. So to take the world back to a time when we ran about in cloth caps and everything was in black and white. So I remember it was analyst, it was insight analyst, it was, there was all sorts of terminologies, and now it's scientists. Fundamentally, the role titles have changed The tools have changed, the technologies have changed, but have the challenges changed?
Not really. I mean, the fundamental challenges are still there, right? So as an analyst, your role or your job is to help the business get value from data. Okay, so in the old days you had the BI analyst, which was the big thing. That's decades ago, where you were running weekly, daily reports, and that was what it was. But you had the same challenges, and even now I think data scientists, even machine learning engineers, I work with them, and I see the same challenges in their organizations that they have. Like I said, no buy-in from stakeholders, misunderstanding the brief. Their work not being relevant for, or the things that they've done not being relevant for what the business wants. They are still fundamentally the same. It's just like, things have changed qualitatively. So, now using potentially Python instead of Excel, but you're still doing the same thing. Does that make sense? You're still processing that data. And if the data is poor quality, it doesn't matter if it's Excel or Python, it's poor quality. That's the nature of the business.
Great question from David. And looking at this, it's a very salient topic at the moment. And David asks, I have found that outputs from analytics and data science models can often be seen as intimidating by human actors who see the intelligence as a threat to their role. He'd be keen to understand what you have done to overcome hurdles like this.
Yes. So, I mean, it doesn't help when, every other article on AI is about taking over someone's job. Okay, that doesn't help. And people who work in the space, we know these machines aren't that sophisticated. Okay, they're very narrow technologies that address a narrow need. Okay, so what I have done, and this is sort of what I've experienced, I guess, as well, is that I always go in and say, look, the things that we're doing, the algorithms, the analytics, the data, is there to help you. It's there to augment your intelligence. Okay. So the idea being that it's to help you with decision making, or it's to help you operationally. So it should help the person who you want, or the team that you're doing the analysis for. Is not to replace them. It's to help them become more efficient, get rid of potentially routine automated tasks that they can do. It's about helping them do a better job, and helping them do it more efficiently and effectively, so they can do more interesting stuff, things that you can think about. I mean, it's not even other parts of the business. I've had the same experience within my own team. So whenever I've started up teams, especially in companies, you bring in analysts who do the regular reporting. So they'll have, in Excel, they would create a really great system where they can create macros and stuff. And after a while, we're like, okay, let's bring in a reporting tool, whether it's Power BI, Tableau. And they'll feel, oh my God, that's going to take my job away. And I'm trying to, and I will explain to them, no, what happens is you take away that automated bit, and then you can start doing thinking, and you can start adding value to what you see in the data. So if you're a marketer and someone says to you, look, I'm going to bring in something that will help you decide what channel to put your marketing spend in, okay, that doesn't mean that the job's gone now, they're not doing the planning. What it means now is that marketer is freed up from having to work out where budget allocation should go, to start thinking more strategically and potentially more creatively, right? So if they know that, okay, we're going to spend more on this channel as opposed to this channel, how can I creatively make it better? And then potentially, which I would like to see, is then work with the data scientists to do some A/B testing and get more data. So.
Absolutely. Now, there's a couple of great questions that have come in here on a very similar topic. I'm going to start off. So Josh Smith asks, do you think that trying to influence non-technical leaders to change strategy from a data and insight perspective is difficult? What ways can you influence non-technical stakeholders to get your point across so that they understand? There's another question here from Donna about strategies that you've found useful when you're influencing those hippos to get them on board to support your presentation findings. Now, I had a question that I scribbled down, which was basically, should more data scientists be trained in psychology? So have you used your Jedi mind tricks? How do you do this? Because you're highly technical, but you're engaging with people, as Josh mentions here, non-technical stakeholders, as Donna mentions, influencing hippos. How do you do that? What's the gold dust, sir?
Yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't recommend everybody go off and do a psychology degree, but do read around how people are influenced. Read around the psychology, like nudge theories and stuff, and theories around conformity and groupthink. And the thing I will always tell you is that we are emotional creatures. Okay, no matter how much we try to be rational, we think we make decisions. We are not. Okay, we are emotional creatures. We're I don't know if you've people would have heard about system 1, system 2 type thinking. Okay, we post rationalize a lot of our decisions. So my strategy, and I hope none of my clients are listening, is that I try to emotionally connect with my stakeholders, okay, especially the non-technical stakeholders. Okay, now what you find is that the reason you're doing a piece of analysis is to help them with a problem that they have. Okay, now if this problem didn't affect them, it wouldn't be high on their radar. Okay, but because it affects them, it's high on their radar. Okay, so what happened is that they're feeling something. They've got anxiety, they're worrying, they've got this board presentation, they've got to get out of the way. So they're feeling something. You've got to go in and make them take that bad feeling away from them. Okay, and you've got to think
the human element bit again.
Exactly, the human element. How do you take that bad feeling away from them? Okay, so if you've got a marketing director who's saying, look, I'm getting 7 different numbers from my team telling me this is the ROI, and the board is saying give us one number, you can go in and say, look, what I would do is I would take all those 7 numbers and I will look at them and I will understand why they're different and align it and give you one number so that you can now go, and this number will be brought in by everyone. It will be the single source of the truth, and you can trust that number. Don't tell them about the magic you're going to do and the technical process. Tell them about how you're going to help them feel better. Okay, and I know it sounds all sort of woolly and wishy-washy, but we are humans, we are emotional creatures, and you have to connect people on that emotional level. And this is why I've been throughout the presentation I've talked about building relationships. You can do that much easier if you already have a relationship with someone, okay, rather than meeting them for the first time. Okay, so build those relationships. But like I said, when you're answering that question, think about it. Why are they asking that question? They're not asking that question because, oh, it's a tick box. The senior people normally ask the non-technical. It's an issue for them, feeling something about it, and you've got to take that bad feeling away from them.
Okay, brilliant. You need to give yourself a drink, sir. You've been talking non-stop. Harry's got a couple of great questions here, so we'll focus in on the first one. Now, you've talked about that influencing, you've talked about those human relationships, but as we know within the workplace, it's not always flowers and bunny rabbits. And Harry asks, how do you help to get around the blockers, people who gatekeep their contacts to stop you having such interlocks into business teams?
Yes. Have we not met the blockers? Yes. Again, they are people, okay? So, I mean, I guess the thing is, I always ask myself, is it because I did a psychology degree that I think like this? Or do I think like this because as an analyst, I wanted to make an impact, okay? So ask yourself this, if you want to make an impact, okay, you've got to make sure that you think in a way that helps the business understand the value of data. So now you take your blocker, so a discrete group of people who may block you from access to senior people. There may be blockers who stop you from doing things in a certain way. Okay, what's their motivation? What is it that they want to do? Now, I'm going to put a caveat. There are some people who are beep. They you cannot deal with them, and they exist. Okay, I'm not going to deny that they don't exist, but on the whole, most people are. You perceive them as blockers because they believe they're doing their job. Okay, so try to understand why they're doing their job. Okay, and then try to understand how what you are doing also benefit them as well as benefit who they're trying to stop access to. So I'll give you an example. If, for example, you believe that if you brought in a new technology and IT were to deploy it, it would help the business to self-serve. So that's a typical example, right? They want a self-serve report. And you say, look, if we introduce this technology, it will allow the business self-serve. That has no benefit for IT. All it means is that they have to go on a 6-month project to migrate stuff and change stuff. Okay, so what is the benefit of IT? So you've got to try and find routes into those people and say, look, this is a benefit to you, and it's different routes. So for some people, it might just be this is the latest technology, next shiny thing, and they love the next shiny thing. Find out if that resonates with them. For other people, it could be, look, those tickets you keep getting every week, it's because this technology that we have now is outdated and it doesn't answer problem, and you're going to keep getting tickets. So think about it. We'll take away those tickets. You can then now work on other things that you want to do rather than have to deal with So and Margaret from So and Finance always calling up about the number being wrong. So try and find what is their motivation and what is it that they want, and then try to help them, not just your end stakeholder.
Okay. Harry's follow-up question takes us in a slightly different direction, and it's something that I've seen, that we as an organization have seen quite a lot recently, where organizations are now looking for the senior leader who has that whole data management, data quality, data governance piece. So Harry asks, I've seen a few companies without a senior leader who cares about data quality or governance, which handicaps the ability to use data correctly. How have you dealt with that type of issue? Other than send them to me and I'll find them for them.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have someone senior who cares about these things, then you are in a world of pain. That's the reality of it. Because
there's a quote. There's a quote.
Yeah, because you're not going to get that senior level buy-in if they don't understand your world. Okay, now unless the easy solution is to get a chief data officer and they can take on that role. But the other thing is what I find someone who actually likes data. Okay, there are typically people in the organization that either at one point or another did work involved in data. So finance team, for example, you might find that the current CFO or the current head of finance probably was an analyst at some point, a financial analyst. So they have an affinity to data. And that's what you're looking for. You're looking for people who have affinity to data. The CEO should also have an affinity to data. Unless you're in a really creative sector where the CEO's value is that they come in with all this creativity and stuff. Most CEOs do have a very numerate background. They need to be able to look at finance sheets. They need to be able to look at P&Ls and work. If you can find people who have affinity to data, then it is a slow process, unfortunately, in educating them. And when I say educating them, I don't mean educating them in sort of sitting them down and telling them this is what data governance is. I mean educating them in terms of what is the value of data, okay, how it can help the business. And what you find is that, or what I have found, is that as you slowly educate these people, they will understanding not only what the value of data is, but what your value is, okay? Yep. And that's the key, because it's not the data in itself that you're trying to sell. You're trying to sell the people who drive the value. And once they understand that, then what will happen is they'll come across a problem, like someone says the product team are like the website's not engaging enough, and the marketing team are like, but it is engaging, we've got nice little pictures on there. Then it comes to the CEO go, okay, you know what, I'll resolve this by speaking to the data person. They'll know how to measure engagement. Have we got this data? And they'll start asking those questions, because then they'll say, have we got data that measures engagement? And you'll educate them that engagement's not something that we measure discrete metrics that we can collate up, like time spent, non-bounce visits, and we can create engagement metrics or loyalty metrics. We can create these things, and then you slowly educate the senior person into becoming that. But again, there is no quick wins. I see people saying that, oh, we can just send a leader on a couple of day data training and they'll be data literate. It's not about that. They have to have an affinity. They have to buy in emotionally that data is of value, and the people doing it are of value.
Heading towards 12 minutes to go, we've got Brian Ferguson, who says, you don't have to answer all these questions, but Brian, we do aim to please here, sir. So we're going to do quick fire through Brian's 3 questions. Number 1, how can adoption of agile techniques, for example, using Scrum framework, help address these tensions?
So, I mean, so what I found is that when you work with those kind of stuff, especially data scientists, is that you can prototype very quickly, okay? Yeah. And if you can get MVPs in front of stakeholders, they can see it, right? They can see, this is what it does. I mean, I remember many years ago, before Netflix created its recommendation thing, that we did it for a broadcaster, and it was literally, we had to work with the tech team in a very agile way, and we literally manually extracted data, sent it to our agency. They analyzed it overnight, sent us the recommendations. We then published it through an ad server, because we didn't have, we weren't going to rebuild the site to deliver recommendations. It wouldn't get bought in. So we did an MVP through the ad server. Instead of an ad slot, we just delivered the recommendations. And through that MVP, the business bought in. They realized that, yes, recommendations do work, and we were able able to measure it, we're able to show success, uplift. So these frameworks work really well. You as an analyst can come up with things that the business can see tangibly very quickly. Okay, don't go on 3 to 6 month road plans. Okay, you want weeks to deliver stuff.
Follow-on question: can product owners help?
Yes, I mean, ultimately, product owners should be key advocate of data. Okay, you shouldn't be making decisions without some informed decision from the data. Most product owners I've worked with, I've been fortunate, have loved data. They've loved to get their hands on it. Some are over keen that they want to do the analysis themselves. But yes, absolutely. If you don't have product owners who aren't aligned to data, then try and work with them. Try and show them what they can do, what they can get out of it. And again, don't always try and solve the big strategic problems. Okay, what should our homepage look like? Try and solve the very discrete things that you might find actually are day-to-day problems for product owners. Okay, so they're debating whether the website's slow, we need to make it faster, right? As an analyst, can you help them understand what making it faster would result in, right? The product owner wants to do introduce a new module. Try and see if you can help them by understanding what data can be collected on top of what's being collected now, how that data will help them evaluate the success of their new features.
I think for a deep dive on this stuff, I know that Harvinder Atwal gave a presentation on this very specific topic. Somewhere you'll find it on the MBN page, the YouTube page somewhere. He gave a discussion very firmly focused on this particular area. And Brian's final question: how can data science fit into a time-boxed activity?
How can data science? So it is one of these things where you will typically have like really big projects, and you'd have really small tactical projects that need doing. The way I've approached this, okay, is that you need to break it up into chunks, and then you need to sort of, average is a bad term, but you need to work out what it takes you typically. Okay, so I mean, it works for me because I run my own consultancy, so I need to time box. I need to give my clients what time frame I can do the project. So you've got the data extraction period, right? Okay, now if you're in the organization, you probably already have access to the data, so it's a couple of hours. But if you're outside of that extraction, or you're working with data that's outside of your estate, your IT estate, you need to work out that there are not time necessary, dependencies in getting that data.
Yeah.
And these dependencies are things like, just finding the right person who can give you access to that data. That could be 2 or 3 days of backwards and forwards of email trying to find that paper. So try and work out on average how much it takes you to get that data. The next chunk is an auditing discovery phase. Okay, once you've got that data, you need to be comfortable that it's the right type of data. Okay, you need to analyze it, run some descriptive statistics on it, just make sure it reflects what you believe the data should do. Once you have that audit discovery phase, then you go into sort of the transformation, getting the more data ready for your model phase. Then you obviously have running the model, train and test. Okay, and then finally a chunk of time in order to present back to the business, or if your presentation is an MVP, a chunk. And you should be able to work out on average how long these things take based on your experience of running different things. It's a bit like how IT do the t-shirt type stuff. The first time I got introduced to that, I thought that's a really great concept, right? You sort of t-shirt these activities, small, medium, large. Try and t-shirt the activities just like IT do, and then you can group them up and say, right, okay, this piece of work will take typically this long. And you'll learn. If you get it wrong, you'll learn, and then next time you'll be better at it.
There's another killer quote right there. T-shirt the activities. I'm loving it. John asks, I know many people aren't that sensitive or responsive to quantitative data-driven arguments, but can be to case studies and anecdotes. Is one strategy to present the arguments based on data analysis by way of a vignette or an anecdote or a case study, in addition to the numbers quant assessment, to speak to the sensibilities of the less evidence-sensitive audience members?
Yeah, less evidence centered.
I love it.
Great term. Now. So this is my personal opinion. Okay, no matter what we talk about, whether people are data literate or data illiterate or not, favored towards data or whatever. Everybody loves stories. Okay, as children, we love listening to stories. Stories has been before the written language. Stories were the main medium.
Yeah.
Conveyed information. Okay, it is a tradition that most cultures still retain. We still read stories to our children, and so if you know, whether it's a vignette, whether it's an infographic, if it's a narrative, if it tells a story, you're more likely to get buy-in, because people can relate to a story, they can relate to the beginning. And there's some great presentation, I've forgotten the name of someone, but I attended a presentation a couple of weeks ago where they talked about the different types of storytelling, you know, the story arches where you've got heroes and challenges and a dragon and all that kind of stuff.
Well, you're going to hopefully be attending a great presentation coming soon from MBN, where we're going to have Martin Squires talk all about data storytelling. So,
that's brilliant. So I'm not going to. I'm not going to claim to be an expert on that, but I have found, you know, I mean, when you study psychology, you sort of look at different parts of it. But, you know, storytelling is very powerful. People can relate to it. Also, people remember, because when you are telling a story, they remember the key components of the story. They don't remember the detail sometimes, but they remember the key thread of the story. And that's your argument, right? You're trying to get the key thread through. So even if they would be dismissive of all the detail, if they go away and someone says something, they go, oh yeah, remember so-and-so presented something. It was about, you know, can we make the basket size larger, and they had some fancy machine and apparently it works. You know, and that's the three things that you wanted them to remember without necessarily buying into the data. So yes, if you can make your presentation into a nice story. I would love to say that I perfected it. I haven't. I'm always learning. You know, even my presentation now, I try to make it into a story. It's sometimes harder than it is harder than it looks, but always have that in mind. You know, if you can tell it as a narrative, as though you're sitting down and talking to someone, trying to tell them something without the aid of slides and stuff, what would they remember?
Maria, great question here. We've got a couple of minutes to go, sir, and I'm determined to bring this one home on time. But Maria adds in to that point that we're discussing there, that narrative, the storytelling. She asks, would you say it is important to also mention how your solution may help to save resources and time or contribute to KPIs? Is it better to always quote some numbers and percentages to get your ideas across?
Again, I hate saying this, but it depends. Okay, so if you are presenting to convince for a business case and an argument to get your project maybe funded or rolled out to the website, then yes, try to show some business value, quantitative business value, right? Whether it's efficiency, savings in efficiency, or it's incremental revenue or sales, whatever it is, if it's doing that. But if the presentation is to literally get people to buy in as the first step before you go and do a business case, then I would not go into the numbers, okay? Because if people aren't bought in emotionally, it doesn't matter if you show them that it's 200% more effective. They're like, I don't believe in that anyway. So, and I see this a lot of the time. A lot of the time people don't believe in certain models. And even if the model's showing that this is much better way of doing it, because they don't believe in the model, they're like, yeah, I don't believe in it. And so I don't really care what it says because I don't believe in the fundamentals.
So our last question, Jamie McLaughlin, you have the honour of being our last question of the day. Do you find that people tend to engage with data as a whole rather than considering the data scientific analysis separate? Is it something that you've seen that you can use lower level reporting engagement to help accelerate the building of relationships between the business and the data function, and then to lend more assuredness about the reliability and actionability of the larger analysis? That quick win MVP thing again. For example, CEO has 4 or 5 reliable reports that is conditioned a little bit more to positively receiving these analyses.
Absolutely.
An idea.
Yeah, absolutely. If your reports are not reliable and trustworthy, believe me, anything else you do, forget it. They won't buy into it. Okay, so get the fundamentals right. I have been to organizations where the data scientists are really smart. They want to do the really clever stuff, or the data analysts. But the regular reports always have issues. There's always an issue because, and it's not their fault. It's because things break, or you know, something's happened, or the tracking and the website's broken. But you need to check it. And you know, I always tell data analysts, check your own reports. Make sure you regularly receive them, because what will happen is that as you see that number, you know what normal looks like. And when you see something that's not normal, you get a gut feeling. Before your brain's even registered, your gut will tell you that report doesn't look right. So before you send it on to the CEO, you would investigate yourself, okay? So make sure you always get the reports yourself before anyone else, or even at the same time, it doesn't really matter, because at least if you're getting the reports, open it up as soon as you get it, scan it. Over time, your brain will get used to what normal looks like, and it will become a gut feeling. Okay, and I speak from experience. I can now look at big sheets of things, and I know when it looks wrong. I don't know why it's wrong, but I know that it looks wrong. And then when my team go and investigate, they're like, "Oh yeah, this has gone down because so and so, or we forgot to add this." So I don't know what is wrong, but I get a feeling that it's wrong. The numbers don't look right. So yes, absolutely. If you can get the fundamentals right and the business trusts those fundamental numbers, then you'll find that later on the journey is much easier when you want to upsell more data science type activity.
And boom, it's a wrap. So a massive thank you firstly to everybody who's attended today. Thank you so much for your questions, your engagement. Thank you very much for continuing to throw interesting comments and observations at Shorful all the way through this. Dr. Islam, thank you so much, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank
really
you, everyone.
Appreciate your input. So much to learn there. And I look forward to sharing the coffee with you sometime in the real world soon. Thanks, man.
No worries. Take care.
Over now, everybody. Thanks again. Have a good day.
Bye, everybody.